I'm determined to harness the power of my professional experiences and my personal lived experiences of financial hardship, being a single mum, living, large and making lots of mistakes, but having a lot of excitement, adventure, and joy along the way, to create products and solutions that make it easier for women to build confidence, financial resilience, and to believe that they have the right and the ability to live life on their own terms.
A friend of mine posted on Instagram the other day that in Australia in 1974, women were approved to apply for credit cards without a male's involvement. And that was only 49 years ago. It's a fact I would love to hear today's guest wax lyrical on, because when it comes to empowering women to be more in control of their finances, she is both passionate and articulate.
Yes, the name says it all. Trenna is the founder of Super Fierce, finance experts behind helping women make smarter decisions about their finances, starting with superannuation. Trenna's personal story of overcoming financial hardship and having the courage to start again drove the beginnings of Super Fierce, and her energy is infectious too. Trenna, a big welcome to Mumbition. We are so thrilled that you're here today. And of course, we love sharing amazing stories from businesswomen around Australia. We'd invite you to share a little bit about yours. Perhaps you can give us your best elevator pitch.
Sure. Look, so my goal is a very tiny goal, which is to close the $30 trillion global gender wealth gap by making appropriate, affordable advice accessible to every woman around the globe. But that's a huge goal. So where we've started is by building a platform that makes it incredibly easy for women to enter a little bit of information, find out how they're on track with their savings to fund a retirement that they will love, and show them just a very simple step that they can take, click a button to see how they can retire with more, all for less than $100.
Yeah, and I really do. I feel like this needs to be amplified. Yes, this is a great message. Can you give us a little bit more in terms of what sparked your journey? Why is this so important now?
I had a reasonably high-flying career in my 20s. For all intents and purposes, I looked like I was having a great time and had everything together. I worked in financial services and understood many of the aspects of finance that maybe don't come as naturally to everybody. I actually genuinely think that women are very good at these things, but underestimate that. But let's pop that to the side for later. But, like many women, I ended up in a challenging situation. And at the age of 34, I had to borrow $3,000 from my parents to leave an unhealthy relationship in a fancy harbourside mansion here in Sydney and literally start my whole life again with an 18-month-old under my arm. And so it's really that experience which fires me to empower others to make better decisions, or to understand and to take comfort and believe that there is a way forward when you feel like there isn't. And so, I'm in my early 50s. By now, I thought I would have, earned the right to work in something exciting like fashion or food or travel or great podcast or something like that. But I'm able to get excited about superannuation because I see it as a hugely powerful tool, which is underestimated, not just by women, but by Australians in general. An incredibly powerful tool to create greater control over your financial future. Now, a horrifying statistic, and I have lots of them up my sleeve, but just one for the morning, is that on average, we're retiring with 42% less than men here in Australia. By the time we're 23, we're already earning $10,000 less on average than the average Australian man. And nobody here thinks we're worth, $10,000 at 23. Over your lifetime, that means over our lifetime, on average, we're earning $1 million less than men. So these are absolutely critical issues to solve for. And, I was frustrated by the gender pay gap, and I was frustrated by, the inequality in all layers of society and in the workforce. But, I kind of like, smash them apart sort of solutions. And when I was looking at the gap at retirement, I realized that through an old business of mine, we'd already built the foundations of a tool that could put a woman in a position in just a matter of minutes to have a massive impact on that. So on average, a woman can save $100,000 in unnecessary super fees just by ensuring she's in an optimal super fund. Then what we've done is, as we've enhanced our product, we don't just compare every single super fund, every single investment option on a like-for-like basis and give you advice. So we are licensed in Australia to provide personal financial advice, and you have to go through a pretty rigorous process to get an Australian financial services license. And that's important to know so that people can have comfort that we're acting in their best interests. But what we built as well and released to market earlier this year is a digital investment scenario builder. And so for your members, a whole lot less than this. But for under $100 at the moment, $49.95, and we're giving your members our members, I'm a member of this community too, 20% off. You actually get personal advice that shows you not just which super fund you should be in, but also a custom investment portfolio that's balancing growth and defensive assets that is the most optimal portfolio for you to put you in a stronger position.
And I would actually also, when you were talking, Trenna, I'm thinking we need to reframe how we think about our finances. We need to use the language that suits us. We need to use the tools that suit us. And I'm a very avid follower of you, and we've had you at your Be Empowered recently at our annual conference. And I see a lot of your messages around owning your own interpretation. So a bit like us, you have your own words. You have your own hashtags around fierce love and audacious hope, which I just think are such powerful little tools to help us reframe our relationship and our conversation. So we have Mumbition. We're creating our own trademarked language because it hasn't suited women before. I love that. It's amazing. And I think this leads nicely into our next question. And a big congratulations on your recent win, which was Thought Leader of the Year and Excellence Award for the Women in Finance 2023.
Thank you. Yes, that came as a great shock, I have to tell you. And it was right at the end of the night, and I was just happily, busily champagne and clapping everybody else, and was definitely not prepared for that moment, even though I did dance up onto the stage.
Well, we're not surprised. And inviting you to share a lesson that you've perhaps learned as a business owner in that thought leadership space that could benefit a woman that's in the early stages of her journey.
Yeah, so it was a pretty surprising moment. And when I was nominated for Thought Leader of the Year, it obviously made me pause and reflect on, what does that actually mean? Because I don't wake up thinking, oh, I'm going to be a thought leader, right? That'd be weird and kind of egocentric, and who does that? And so it really did get me thinking about what I have done that has led to this pretty unexpected moment in my personal and professional journey. And that is, I stopped worrying about for a while, I probably wasn't talking up as much as I wanted to. And anybody who knows me would probably find that very surprising because I talk up a lot. But I wasn't talking up as much as I wanted to because I kept worrying that I didn't know what people were interested in hearing. Because I have an opinion about lots of things. I wonder if it's the opinionated Leader of the Year award. I'm not sure. But, and then eventually I stopped worrying about that and just thought, I'm just going to say what's on my mind. And so I really encourage everybody to perhaps think less about that. I think, there's so much content out there saying that you need your pillars of content and you need to have a particular space that you're going to own and so on. Now, I'm in my 50s. I'm very determined about what I believe and what I care about. So it's easier for me to have some clarity around the way those things connect together. So perhaps, I've done some of that legwork already, but I think that there's a tendency to get really hung up on getting it right. And so for me, it's more about being just keep turning up. I turn up to every environment and I say what's on my mind. I listen to others. I try to evolve my thinking and I try to be a positive contributor, but I don't waste a lot of time worrying about if it's worth saying anymore. It certainly helps if you have a big mission. I'm really determined by, I'm really determined to bring together my professional experiences with my lived experiences of life, lived experience of financial hardship, the challenges of being a single mum, being diagnosed with ADHD at 40, not being able to feed my son because, all of these things, all of those things create this really rich tapestry of experience that put me in a unique position, like every single human, to bring our own unique perspective and magic to the world.
If someone's actually about to launch their first business, as part of their setup of operations, I'd almost be like, well, absolutely, you need to check, have that list checked that you have allocated yourself super. Because and you might have, I don't know if you have so many stats, but I know as a small business owner that, especially with my first business that I started in 2008, it was Daily Addict. I wasn't paying myself super for a while, and I tend to think that this is an area that gets deprioritized.
Absolutely. It's hugely important, Carrie. So, when you're building your business, you think that there's only so much money. And so we kind of think about paying our future self is the last of our priorities because we feel like we can't even pay ourselves today often, right? And so I absolutely urge women to not fall into that trap. And it can be hard because it feels like you don't have the choice, but I'm going to let you know why this is critical because you are also already mums. So as mothers, we already look, there is a reason why there's a 42% gender retirement gap. Women retiring with 42% less than men. There are lots of them, but the most critical ones actually pertain to motherhood and caring roles. So we take time out of the workforce to be mothers, and we're not earning super through that period. It's changing for some people now, but certainly haven't been. Most people come back part-time. We lose pace on our promotions, pay rises through that period, and the gap gets wider and wider. We often delay coming back because we think that it's not worth it, after the cost of childcare, but the loss of the superannuation is a hidden trap there. So you're already stacked up, you've already got these challenges, you've got the gender pay gap, all of these things. So this is why, even if you're, you must be paying yourself super. It is a tax effective environment. And the earlier you put money in there, the earlier you put money into your super, it's compounding over time. Now, compounding is a concept that a lot of people struggle with, and I don't think I do a particularly good job of explaining it, so I have to think of a better way to do this. But you think about a snowball, right? So when a snowball rolls down a hill, it starts off like this. And so think about each turn of the ball being a day. So the snowball takes one turn and it's gathered a bit of snow. Takes another turn down the hill, that's another day, and the extra size that was on it the day before is then grown on the next day. So, what that means is the benefit of compounding is the growth that you get, particularly in a tax effective environment like superannuation, which is an investment, growing money for your future, is the longer you have money in there, the bigger it's growing and growing. And you don't have to do a single thing about that other than make sure there's money going in there. Now, you may think that your business is going to be a great success, and I hope it will be. You deserve for it to be great, but you're going to work so hard. You're going to do so much for your family, and having the certainty that you're going to have sufficient funds so that you can live a great life in your later years is so important. The fastest growing homeless demographic in this country are single women over the age of 55. Right? I'm going to be 55 soon. I was a single mum. It feels way too close to home for me. And so I just want women to understand that this is a very simple step. Now, we all ignore our super. So a couple of important things to understand about super. Super is the only financial asset that every working Australian has in some form from the time they start working until the time they retire, really till the end of life. So it's very important. Up until recently, it was the largest financial asset after the family home. But we now all see how difficult it is to become a property owner in Australia. But also because superannuation has been in play for so long, if you are 37 today or younger, it will be your largest financial asset over your life. So you think about the impact of considering how that's building and growing for you. Tax effective environment, it's hugely powerful. Do not ignore your super. Please pay yourself super. If you can't do it for yourself, get your partner to do it for you.
Now, I want to turn our conversation to the relationship that you have with risk. And I'm really, really fascinated to hear how you view risk and what are some of the processes that you've put in place to protect yourself and also super fierce.
Yeah, fantastic question, Carrie. I mean, I touched on very briefly before that I was diagnosed late in life with ADHD, not uncommon for women of my generation, and so yeah, I think there's been a lot of blips throughout my personal life and my career that are probably a reflection of a reasonably high appetite for adventure, adrenaline, and risk. I worked at Macquarie, we tend to be wired in that way. But I actually think that it's more about, I just have an insatiable curiosity and excitement about the world. And so I've always gone hurtling into that headlong, terrifying my poor mother. But as year by year, I've gradually gained awareness. And so I think one of the powers of being diagnosed late with ADHD was I continued to live boldly, but so I would build frameworks and tools around me to try and help me navigate things more effectively so that I could have conversations in a structured way with myself to assess the decision making and see if my first instinct stacked up against some detective thinking around what had happened in the past or, research around what I could see. So I had a conversation with my 11-year-old this morning about how I was proud of him because I spoke to him a couple of days ago about critical thinking. He was talking about a particular thing he'd seen on YouTube and I was horrified. And so, but I didn't say I was horrified. I just said, that's very interesting. And so talked about how you do fact checking and you lean into your instinct and so on. And this morning in the car, he said, so Mum, I just wanted to let you know feminists are not evil. I said, well, that's a great relief. He said, I think I've worked out that what's happened is the boys at school are listening to all of these things on YouTube, blah, 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 blah. And I'd like to suggest that instead of talking about feminists, that you start talking about gender equalitists, so I think was his word. And the reason I bring that up, though, is, that I'm encouraging him to use critical thinking as a tool. And that's what I try to use with myself as well. So to guide my thinking, to reference previous experience, to identify risks that I've stumbled into before. And, like with my businesses. So my very first business, I was tremendously good at winning business. I used to execute really well, but I was brought up in a conservative country family and I was taught that it was rude to talk about money. So I didn't get paid. Like, I was terrible at getting paid. So I've took from that first business, I went away and I was like, okay, every business moving forward, I will get 50% of my invoice paid on commencing a job, as an example, in the same sorts of service industry. So what I try to do is to make sure that I'm gathering those frameworks and reference points from my own experiences, but reading widely.
I loved the little insight into being in the car with your son. I have a 10-year-old son and Carrie does too. So close in age there.
Such a beautiful age.
It is, and they're really curious about the world. And I'd just like to take a little bit of a step, I guess, closer towards how you harmonize your life as a business owner, because obviously you have some incredible energy, some incredible passion for your business. And you also run Super Fierce alongside your husband, and you're also a mum. So what would you say is one or two or just even a philosophy or a tool or a system that you use that really helps you to harmonize all those aspects of life?
So I think I kind of think of myself sometimes almost like confetti, or, the sparkle of bubbles that come out of a champagne glass. And that might sound self-absorbed, but it's not really. It's kind of how I like to use color and feelings and visual imagery to shift my energy and how I move through the world, because we all have difficult moments. And so by imagining, a spray of confetti or the bubbles out of a champagne glass, like, that's a joyful, exuberant, lively feeling. And so I use those sorts of visualizations to remind me of the impact that I can have on others and on myself. I deal with people all the time who are having a really hard time. And so protecting my energy is important. I'm not good at it. I'm all out. So I had a coach many years ago. I'm always surrounded by coaches for different things. That's, very important for me. It took me years to learn that I was worthy of having a coach, to give myself permission to have a coach. I think that's a common problem for women. Maybe not, maybe it's just me. But one of those people taught me to put a big balloon around me. And so the balloon enables me still to see and touch, and I can hear everybody, but it just creates a little bit of space to protect my energy and my heart when it's getting all too much.
Now, final two questions for you. The first one is sort of related to what you're just sharing, actually, that concept of harmony for us, which is a triangle of ambition, our livelihood and well-being, which I really feel like you've explained there. But if you could describe the shape of what a good life looks like for you, what would that be?
Probably a flower. So we've been looking at flowers and talking about flowers this morning. And for me, I really love the richness of the different pieces that come together in non-perfect ways. So, looking behind you, Carrie, at those beautiful peonies, right? They look soft and beautiful, right? But there's real strength in those as well. You've got the different shades of the different petals. You've got the vibrancy of the leaves. And so I think that, what I would love people to be able to experience in their life is to have the confidence and the comfort not to need to control the form of that so deliberately. And be aware that, that the wind's going to blow and things are going to turn and shift a little bit. It's not going to look the same, but each view of that can be just as beautiful, so long as you keep pouring in the water and you trim away the edges sometimes, and shift them in and out of the sun a little bit more from time to time, and understand that in certain seasons they're going to wilt a little bit more and give you less shade, all those sorts of things. I think, just remembering that life is not perfect. It's like, like the flowers, they're not perfect, but they're still beautiful in their own form.
Beautiful answer. And I don't think we've had anyone mention a flower shape before, so it's beautiful. Last question for you is, in the spirit of women supporting women, which you so clearly do, could you share with us or shout out to some of the Mumbitious women in your life, that is the women running a business and looking after children unapologetically, that you'd like to say hello to today?
Oh my goodness. Well, how long do you have? But let me just choose a couple. So Nabi Mariam. Nabi is the founder of Cover Hero. She has had an incredibly huge year, balancing everything, and has successfully shepherded her beautiful boy through year 12, entering a new stage of life. One of my best friends in the world, Kylie Levitt, she's down in Launceston, which I can never say. And, she is a single mum of twin 4-year-old terrorists, and running, a huge M&A advisory business from just incredible, mind blown. She's about this big and just a powerhouse. Zarmeen Pavri, if you want to follow someone who is the best leading ethical and sustainable expert and investor in the country, Zarmeen Pavri, mum to 2 incredible young women who are forging their own paths. We must talk about Amy and Mel. Amy and Mel are the founders of Wedshed. They both have 2 little people each. They've just published a book. It's out in market. They've launched another business, mind blown all the time. If I was younger than them, I would want to grow up to be them. Incredible.
Thanks so much for joining us on Mumbition, the podcast by Mums & Co. If you'd like to connect with Trenna, you'll find her on our Mums & Co member directory via the member platform.
And if you haven't already joined the thousands of business-owning women just like you, join us at mumsandco.com.au. We have membership tiers to suit women at all stages of business and motherhood. And if you enjoyed today's podcast, please rate and review us. Lucy and I love reading your reviews and your feedback. It also means that more women in business can be supported, and they can tap into these Mumbitious stories to inspire and inform them.
We're going to close out this episode with Trenna now from a question from one of our listeners. And that question for you, Trenna, is how do you celebrate milestones with your family?
Can you see my trophies here in the background? Can you see the red and the pink ones? So you'll love this story. Last Wednesday was the 1-year anniversary of my husband surviving a significant bilateral stroke. And so on the weekend, we had a few friends around, and I presented my son with a trophy for best and fairest because, he has been just unbelievable being my support over the last year and helping to look after his dad. And I gave my husband Quiet Achiever because he was in a coma for so long. And then I awarded myself a trophy for best on ground because without me, none of us were going to get through this year. We often spend so long waiting to be recognised. I think it's okay to give yourself a trophy from time to time as well, just to recognise your own achievements. And maybe we should all do that for each other more. Instead of Christmas presents and cards, maybe we should give each other trophies.